Severe dementia activities. People with severe dementia require activities that provide various avenues of sensory stimulations. Caregivers often need to be sensitive to their responsiveness and introduce activities that promote them to interact with their environment. Explain the activity briefly to the elderly person. Request for her assistance by asking her to hold the box with both hands. Place the marble into the box and guide her gently to move it through the paint and see the artistic effects. Direct the elderly person's attention onto the marble and ask her to follow the movement of the rolling marble. Be patient and prompt her regularly to her attention on rolling the marble. Remove your hands off the box when the elderly person is able to move the marble independently. Despite the elderly person's limited abilities, this activity allows both caregiver and her loved one to work together and produce a simple piece of art. Provide opportunity for the elderly person to provide feedback and respect her choice when she expresses fatigue. Appreciate the completed art piece with her and compliment her for her efforts. Face the elderly person, address her, and guide her hands gently to lift the balloon. Physically cue her wrists to bring down the balloon. To increase her awareness, vary the stimulation by rotating the balloon and prompting her to hold on. Repeat the action and observe her engagement level. Experiment with various ways of using the balloon to attract her attention to different stimulation. The objective of such an activity is to provide various sensory forms of stimulation like touch, sound, and pressure to increase the elderly person's awareness and interaction with her environment. Caregiver needs to be observant as often the elderly person's responses may be very subtle, like closing eyes or losing hand pressure. Observe her responses and end the session when the elderly person shows signs of fatigue, such as closing her eyes or decreasing engagement. Introduce one tile at a time and cue the elderly person to identify a similar tile. Be patient as she needs more time to process at the beginning. Repeat the instructions slowly to reinforce the learning. Provide positive feedback to encourage her participation. The elderly person often requires multiple repetition to enforce the learning and master the task. The objective of this activity is to provide an opportunity for the caregiver and her loved one to interact purposefully through a focused task catered to the abilities of the elderly person. If the elderly person had difficulty with the task, redirect her attention and repeat the instruction with physical cues. As she adapts to the task, reduce physical cues and rely on verbal prompts to assist her. Appreciate her efforts and thank her for an enjoyable time completing the task. Sit next to the elderly person and introduce the reminiscence photos one at a time. Prompt her to identify the items, their use, and their experiences using them. Discussion of these items help to prompt them to recall their past and provide opportunity for them to spontaneously share their life experiences and challenges. Also, they can share their values and beliefs. For elderly person with impaired memory or language abilities, reminiscence provides an avenue for self-expression and social interaction based on familiar long-term memory with these concrete photos. The objective of this reminiscent activity is to provide opportunities for the caregiver and elderly person to communicate purposefully with focus items that triggered familiar memory from the past. This often allows the elderly person to be able to express with confidence and spontaneity that can be affected by the deteriorating disease. Not only can the caregiver benefit from having a meaningful conversation with her loved one, it is also an opportunity to learn new knowledge and understand the joyful or challenging life events her loved one has experienced. Such meaningful connections benefit both as it enhances their relationship, sense of self-esteem, and promotes sense of well-being. Start by getting the elderly person's attention. Demonstrate the task and reinforce the instruction with physical cues. Be patient and repeat the instructions concisely when necessary. If she has difficulty understanding the task, provide assistance with cues. If needed, physically guide her hands to the right sticks. Allow time for her to perform the task at her own pace. Provide regular positive feedback to encourage her. Minimize verbal prompting if elderly person responds better to physical cues to prevent distraction. Feedback to her when task is completed before proceeding to next task. Introduce the rubber band and explain with gestures. Repeat the task to reinforce the instruction to help the elderly person execute the task. Thank her for her participation when the task is completed.
Amue. Hô lẹo. Very good á.